Welcome to the White Dog Trail Company. Today we're going to be tying a steelhead fly that's a very common fly. It's a glow bug. These are by far the flies that I use the most when I'm fishing for steelhead. We're going on a steelhead trip and I need to tie up a bunch of these. So figured we'd do a little video and show you guys how to do this. Okay. My favorite colors are salmon egg pink with a flame orange dot. Other colors that I like to tie are more kind of the unfertilized egg, which would be just a regular egg color or an Oregon cheese color. Again, usually with a flame orange dot. We also tie orange, a little more yellow colors maybe. And every once in a while, I do use a blue one. For some reason, blue tends to draw bites from steelhead when nothing else seems to be working. So I always have a few of the blue ones as well in my box. But we need to fill the box. I am going to go with mostly the salmon egg pink. Those are the ones I go for by far the most. And so we're going to take a decent sized strip of this. Unfortunately, you go through a lot of this yarn if you're tying a lot of these. The longer you make it, the easier it is to tie. The shorter you make it, the harder it is to tie, but you can get more flies out of it. So I'll usually cut it about that length. I want to use, my preference is to have 2 strands of the yarn. So I'll actually double it over like that, and that makes it a little bit thicker. And then I also use the flame orange dot. Basically, we're just going to peel a piece of that off, and we're going to lay that right in the center, just like that, and that's how we're going to tie our hook. Okay. Now for hooks, I like the Blackbird Sabertooth hooks. I generally go with a size 8 for these. I do go down to size 10, but I find that I lose more fish on the size 10 than I do on the size 8. The size 8s have a little bit wider gap on them. They tend to hook and hold fish well. Of course, when you hook a steelhead, you never know what's going to happen in the first 30 seconds, but if you got them after 30 seconds, you know, there's a good chance you're going to land them. But I like these hooks. They are very strong, they are very sharp, and I like the little bit wider gap on the hook itself. Now when we're setting this in here, I want this to be really secure. We're going to really be cranking on this thing as we're tying it, so it needs to be able to not move in there. Okay. I also use a fairly heavy thread. I'm using a big fly thread here. Color doesn't really matter because it's not really going to show up on the fly, but I use bright colors because they have bright eggs. Again, this is a big fly. This thing is not going to break. I'm going to be able to pull on this really hard, and nothing's going to happen to it. We're going to start by getting the thread on the fly. All right, trim our tag. Okay. Now we want this to pretty much be in the center. Wherever this line is really where the center of the egg is going to be. Okay. So I'm going to lay this directly on top with my 2 strands and then my flame orange dot on top. I'm going to cinch it down nice and tight. You want to make sure that that stays right on top. You're going to pull it down pretty good. Again, right on top. 3 wraps. A couple wraps in front, a couple wraps in back. And you can even do wrap right around the base to kind of get it nice and sturdy. Okay, a couple wraps, and then we're basically going to keep it tight. I'm going to throw on a whip finish. Okay, and trim our tag. Okay, and that's essentially tied. Now all we have left is to cut it. You want to use some heavy gauge, sharp scissors. The cut is the most important part. We're going to want to grab all of the yarn at once, and we're going to want to pull it up straight, and we're going to want to make a nice even cut. Okay. Now, once you got this, you're basically just going to move it around and fluff it out a little bit, and you're going to make it as much of an egg pattern as possible here. I will actually oftentimes use a toothbrush to help spread it around a little bit. Okay. If you need to, you can give it a little bit of a haircut. I got one little longer strand over here. I want to try to even out a little bit. Okay. So it's a pretty decent, nice round glow bug. That's really all there is to tying it. They're pretty simple. You can do them really quick. You can put a little bit of head cement on the thread underneath. I tend not to do that just because I go through so many of them. By the time a glow bug is wearing out, I've probably already lost it, or I've caught a fish on it or a couple. It's essentially a glow bug. Fairly easy to tie, very effective fly. Again, you want to fish it low and slow. These things will absorb water. That's why I like them a little bit thicker. Once they absorb the water, they hold on to the water. They look like a real egg. You drop it in, it'll drop down pretty quick. You can, if you want them a little bit heavier, you can tie a little piece of lead right into the shank, just kind of like right along the shank. It doesn't take much. Tie it in, and then you can tie the glow bug on top of that. That'll give it a little bit of extra weight. When I'm fishing these, I tend to fish somewhere around a 9-foot leader that's going to be somewhat heavy depending on conditions. I'll go anywhere from 17 to 14 pound fluorocarbon line for the main line. That'll go from my fly line down to a sinker, so about 9 feet of the heavier fluorocarbon line down to a swivel. And that small barrel swivel, you'll then tie a shorter piece for whatever weight line you're going to use for the actual kind of tippet part. I'll go anywhere from 14 pound, depending on conditions, down to 8 pound fluorocarbon. As you tie on that shorter piece to the swivel, leave a long tag end, and then you can pinch your shot onto that tag end. That way, when you're fishing, if the shot gets hung up in the rocks, which will happen a lot, if you're fishing it right, it will happen a lot. And when you pull, hopefully you just lose the sinkers and not the whole setup. That's the idea. And it does work a lot that way. But again, as you're doing this, you want to keep feel of those sinkers basically tapping along the bottom. You want that egg to go just kind of tumbling through the rocks on the bottom. If it's zooming above them way up high, most likely they're going to not see it as natural, and they're gonna forego it. A lot of times I'll go over top of fish and not know it, and then I'll put on more lead to be able to get down more. I'll start feeling it, and then immediately I get bet. So low and slow. But glow bug's a great fly, great for steelhead. Definitely the first fly I put on when I get to the river every time if I'm going for steelhead, and usually that's the only fly I need, honestly. Well, this has been the White Dog Trail Company. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you've learned something and you can use it in your fishing. Good luck, and we'll see you on the river.